Oh my gosh, it just told me that I couldn't go live. You were recording too frequently. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, we're live. Sorry, that was really weird. For a minute, my StreamYard said that I couldn't go live because I have recorded too much. That was so strange.
That may be
Anyway.
that may be a possibility with all the lives you're doing and all the feeds you've been doing out of the P. Diddy courthouse.
I know. That was so alarming for a second. Oh my goodness. Well, hi everyone. It's been a minute. I'm Lauren Conlin, and with me is my very lovely and my favorite former homicide prosecutor, Jarrett Ferentino. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm actually sweating. I kind of got home. I'm like, I probably, you know what? I'm going to take this off. Sorry. Hi everyone. Hi Afton. Hi Sal. Miss you guys a lot. But it's been a couple weeks since Jarrett and I have hopped on. Hi, Teresa. And that's namely because the Diddy trial that I'm covering is during the day, all day. Hey, Sharon. And it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. Hey, Forrest. Yay. Member for 10 months. Love it. But it was important to me to get Jarrett on to explain some things that I think need to be explained, because I think that we're hearing a lot from people like, where's the government's case? Where's the RICO? Where's the sex trafficking? What's this? What's that? And I think it's important to break down these charges. That's how I feel. And I think that I have some thoughts on this, but first, Jarrett, what do you think? What do you think about, and again, remember, Jarrett's a former prosecutor, but what do you think about these RICO charges?
Well,
yeah.
Okay, so it's an interesting deployment of the RICO charge, okay?
Yeah.
The theory of any RICO case, you're looking for an organization and ongoing crimes. And then you ask the question, what are the predicates? So RICO predicates are crimes that you have to commit, essentially, in furtherance of the conspiracy. So I'm of a different opinion than a lot of people are on this case. I think the organization is clear. It's Bad Boy Entertainment. It is a criminal individual, okay, P. Diddy, who has this corporation and related company around him that he uses for the regular commission of crimes. And here are the predicates as I see them. Number one, the prosecution started with the most powerful and damning piece of evidence, the video of Cassie being beat at the Continental Hotel. Why? You'd say, hey, not that this isn't a crime, isn't this just a domestic dispute between two people involved in a romantic relationship? Partially yes, partially no. It is a battery and an assault and a kidnap of her, because that beating, as brutal as it was, occurred during one of those freak offs. She clearly was not a willing participant at that time. The fact that that freak off was going on in the hotel at that time has been established by staff, the people that clean the room, all of these things. You may be wondering, like, why are we talking about this? Why is it important that they clean oil and sheets and everything up? Because part of the enterprise was he's transporting not the sex workers. He's transporting Cassie. He's transporting Jane for illicit sex. And in doing so, he's coerced them. He's beat them. He's blackmailed them with video. And he's done it in vehicle owned by Bad Boy Entertainment. That's why we are swept up in a conspiracy and a RICO charge against Diddy. Here's the other thing.
Wait, can I ask you a question before? Okay, but to prove this, don't you need, I feel like the conspiracy, you need co-conspirators, right? Am I right or wrong?
You do. Okay, so you need other participants in a RICO charge, okay? You could have unindicted.
And a conspiracy in general, right? A conspiracy in general. Okay. But so where is that? I really just want to know, like, where is that conspiracy within, let's say, the hotel beating video, the setup of transporting the materials for Cassie to engage in this, Jane, whatever. Where is that conspiracy exactly?
That conspiracy can be as simple as the drivers that worked for him driving at the behest of Diddy. Okay? They could be unindicted co-conspirators. Now, we asked this the day the indictment fell. You and I were live and we were reading it. What did I say? Nobody else is charged here because those folks, they're unindicted co-conspirators. Okay? And a conspiracy isn't very complicated. It's an agreement in furtherance of a crime. If I'm driving these individuals to freak offs, if I'm picking up sex workers and I know exactly what's going on in there, I am a co-conspirator. That's the theory behind this case. Now, the next thing is you got the Kid Cudi situation. So one predicate or two is the battery and kidnapping of Cassie at the Intercontinental. The second thing that's been highlighted is the Kid Cudi deal, where he calls up Capricorn Clark and says, I'm going to go kill this guy, okay, a felony, goes into his house, allegedly, burglarizes the home, opens the Christmas presents. His car is seen there. The car which is owned by Bad Boy, part of the conspiracy, and the RICO.
Right.
And the Molotov cocktail, the old English malt liquor bottle with the silk scarf that goes into the car and burns it, arson, another predicate. So again, this is not the traditional mob use of RICO, which wasn't traditional when Rudy Giuliani originally used it in the 1980s, but conspiracy. That's what's going on here.
And that's what I think that's what we've been hearing is the RICO is tougher to prove here because it's not like, again, the mob situation where these guys were money laundering and it was so clear and easy to see what was going on. I think that what a lot of people are asking, and I think I saw it in the chat as well, people want to know, is KK going to testify? She is his right-hand chief of staff throughout. I mean, Cassie, I mean, she's seen it all. And the answer is, I don't know. They were going through some witnesses this afternoon, and the government actually said they expect their case to be completed by either between next Wednesday
or Friday.
But we don't have court Thursday. It's Juneteenth. So I heard about 4 more witnesses that they mentioned. Jane's going to be on the stand through tomorrow. I mean, I don't see KK testifying. I saw another assistant, and this assistant, Jonathan, I know that he is definitely going to corroborate some of Jane's testimony because according to Jane, she said that he saw Diddy treat her unfairly, et cetera, and said, you don't deserve this type of thing, setting up their hotel nights, whatever. So I think he's going to sort of corroborate, but yeah, I guess all of these assistants who now have immunity and proffer agreements could be considered, quote, co-conspirators. But so Jarrett, and just for people, that are new to watching this, Jarrett, obviously a former prosecutor, I am always here to sort of push back and kind of talk about the defense side and sort of the holes they could poke, just because that's our dynamic here.
I call both sides of the ball. Just
no,
for
you
record.
do.
I'm a former prosecutor.
Yes,
but,
I did say that. I said former.
So to answer that question, let's assume for a moment KK doesn't testify. Okay, a lot of what she would have probably testified to, right, is maybe financial transactions like the $100K to Garcia for the video. Where did those proceeds come from? All this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Those monies, you can testify, you can have that documentation admitted through someone who may not be personally through a business record exception to the hearsay rule under the federal rules. You can get the best evidence that KK may give you. Look, she may give you the stuff Capricorn was giving you or Mia was giving you, but without KK, you could still prove this. That's the thing. Like, I understand people are saying in a traditional sense, this doesn't look like that. This does not look like a typical RICO case. The other thing people are saying is, look, these were consenting adults, right? These were folks that, and look, that's a jagged pill for people to understand. It's difficult for people to understand Cassie staying for all those years, 15 years, right? And then Jane coming into the picture. It's weird. Jane was never really a girlfriend. She just seemed to be the replacement for the freak offs for Cassie. I don't mean to sound cold about that, but
you're not. You're just stating facts. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, so there is another woman that I believe participated in these, Gina, but who is not testifying, and we're hearing Gina's name a lot in court. Her name comes up all the time. She seems to be a crazy point of contention for all of Diddy's main girlfriends. you know, because she just keeps appearing and she, I guess, causes a lot of toxicity. And it just, you know, I don't know. But I think
was toxicity their biggest problem in these relationships? I mean, like,
yeah, it's fun. No, seriously, right? No, I feel like you're right about that. I think that clearly it always comes down to the jury, of course. But in this case, I have felt like the jury instructions, number one, it's going to take a long time because I think some of these jurors, like just by looking at their face, I think that they are, I mean, one woman in particular really seems to side with the defense when they are cross-examining women. In particular, I noticed this one woman, did the same kind of smirk when Dawn Richard was being cross-examined, when Mia was being cross-examined, and then now Jane. So I feel like, you know, and it comes down to also the fact that these people are talking about a life that a lot of us are really not familiar with. I mean, you have Jane on the stand today who's talking about really not being happy staying at the Nobu Hotel. If you look up the prices of the Nobu Hotel, it's like 10 to 15 grand a night, you know, flying on private jets to go to Vegas for a party to see, you know, so I think it's the jurors are really going to have to understand what the charges are.
But Lauren, here's what people understand. He pummeled Cassie in that video.
But I'm not talking about that.
If I'm prosecuting this case, though, but let me say this: if I'm prosecuting this case, okay, it's going to come down to whether or not the jury sees Cassie and Jane as consensual participants in these sex escapades with Diddy. When you see that video and you hear that testimony, no email about enjoying that is going to unring that bell. Okay, it's possible. At one point, she may have been into what he was into, okay? The guy has dangerous sexual proclivities, right? So at some point, anybody out there knows a yes to a sexual escapade is not a yes forever. It could be withdrawn. You could become a voluntary participant. I understand. Now, what may speak to a jury? These women lived in the lap of luxury. They benefited from the relationship. He was giving them monies. Okay, his problem was throw cash and gifts at everybody in his life. I get that was a problem. And jurors are people.
Yeah.
They may look at this and say, you know, can I feel real sorry for these folks? They stayed all this time. There's one thing I think you can't escape, though. It's the power of Diddy. He was extremely connected. He was world famous. And that creates another imbalance. We're back in the Harvey Weinstein world, the Bill Cosby world, all of that stuff. So it's
okay. So let me say one thing that I thought about today, and this occurred yesterday, and I was talking to also somebody that is very close to the case on the government side, and you know, we're talking about all of this that we're hearing. And I kind of said to him, you know, I wonder what the jury's thinking, because we hear over and over how much Jane loves him, how she is placating to his fantasies about these escorts, setting things up. He offers a breakup, offers her 3 months, you know, whatever. Everything we're saying that would show that perhaps maybe she regrets it now, which Teddy Garagos kind of got her to say on the stand today. Like, you regret it now, because she kept saying, did you agree to this? Did you agree to sleeping with this man, that man? And Jane would say, unfortunately, yes. And Tenny said, well, you keep saying unfortunately, but did you agree to it or not? And she said, yes, but I resent him for it and I regret it, type of thing. And Tenny said, okay, so you regret it now. And what we heard from Jane, I think it was either yesterday or the day prior, and I think it's so important, and this is what this guy said that's very close to the case, is after the beating in LA in June of 2024. There's a couple things here, Jarrett. After this beating, he forces her to engage with a third-party entertainer. He holds out her hand, gives her this pill after he tells her to put makeup on, right? And basically tells her to take this effing pill and go out there and S this guy's D, F this guy, whatever she has to do. He doesn't want her to ruin his night. And she says, I don't want to do this. And he, you know, says, you're not going to ruin my night. And then he says to her, is this coercion? Okay. That right there, this guy, again, close to the case, he said, for me, if I'm a juror, that's all I need to hear. Now, what I found to be so interesting about this is the fact that what we heard this week is that March 2024, his house gets raided, Two-Star Island. Cassie's lawsuit came out prior to that, November of 2023. So, I mean, even when he got arrested, right? He had cash, he had drugs, he had FO material. So we heard from Agnifilo himself, and this was a big sidebar objection moment about questioning about his apology video and how Jane said she wasn't happy with the apology video after the beating dropped and everything. And it was because Mark Agnifilo had him change some things and he did not mention Cassie anymore. So Agnifilo was like, that questioning is struck because it was me who told him what to do here, how to write this, how to say it, whatever. And so Agnifilo and Diddy's lawyers really had been in his head since Cassie's lawsuit, since the video dropped, since his house got raided. And yet he is still engaging in this behavior and he is even aware of it. He's saying, is this coercion? Now, if what she's saying is true, and he said that and the jury believes her, what does that mean? Does that mean everything is just tossed aside for her to say, for this one moment? Because again, just because a man grapes a woman once, but 27 times it was consensual, doesn't mean the grape didn't happen type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Could this one instance just cancel out everything else? That was so long-winded. Sorry.
No, well, first of all, you make a good point. So number one, I think, why do I always say number one as if I'm counting all of it? So first thing, the fact that Agnifilo advised him of that statement is immaterial. It's still Diddy. So the fact that he said it, it's his statement. Whether or not his lawyer told him to say it or not, in my opinion, is irrelevant. The second thing I would say is,
well, the judge agreed.
Yes,
it was he
right. It was in right.
Yeah.
So 27 consent incidents and one non-consensual incident is enough. It's enough. I mean, that like you can. So here's the other thing. It was this environment of coercion. I had videos of you doing this. I will use them against you. I have financial power over you. I'm giving you a drug that you don't, to intoxicate you, to reduce your inhibitions, to act in. Why get the drug if you don't need it? Why get the drug if you're being consensual and you want it? Okay. Is the drug to enhance the experience or is it to inhibit your reservation? And if that's the case, you're back to the blue pill that Bill Cosby gave Andrea Constead. Okay. That's the kind of thing we're in here. So I just
That's
think
an interesting question, Jarrett, actually. And I don't know the answer to that. Why would you take so many drugs to engage in these hotel nights or FOs if you genuinely enjoy them? But I think the answer to that would be because it enhances the pleasure, I guess. Like that would be, or you lose your inhibition.
There's two reasons people do drugs.
Yeah.
Two reasons people do drugs. To feel pleasure or to quell pain. Okay. So that's the argument. If I'm the prosecution, I'm saying, no, these drugs were intoxicants administered by Diddy to reduce their inhibitions, reduce their ability to force them to essentially comply. Okay. Despite their objections at some point. So look, I just think I can't get over, and I hope a jury look at this video, the stuff that has come out about Diddy. I mean, every day it's like it's death by 1,000 brutal stab wounds. It's like he is just, and then he comes in with his Bible and his gray sweater and his gray hair. No, every 25 years the guy's been wearing fur coats, shades, like capes. We know who you are.
It was wild to hear that he shared Bible verses and gospel with Jane, his favorite sermons. One of my friends from court from Complex found made a whole playlist of his favorite sermons. And it's so crazy because you're hearing that he was a godly man, but he was doing incredibly diabolical like, I guess it was tough, it was really tough to listen to this beating that Jane took. I cannot, as a female, I cannot imagine getting punched in the face by a man. Just because I know how much even the weakest man is probably stronger than me, like I
Well,
just
and
feel like
kicked in the stomach, kicked in
oh
the
my gosh,
stomach. Like these are awful. Like
horrible.
it's
And
just
then
the cycle.
he has favorite sermons. You're like, wait, are you listening to the
Well,
sermons?
because no
I mean,
no
what,
criminal
like,
has ever hid behind God, right? But
oh no,
here's the other
never.
thing. I had a defendant carry a Bible in and out. He was accused of the attempted murder of 5 police officers in an active shooting, carried a Bible in every day. He was convicted. He showed up a month later for sentencing with a tattoo of the names of all of the officers he attempted to kill on tombstones on his arm.
Oh
So he wasn't carrying the Bible anymore.
Oh my gosh. Well, no, I mean, yeah, and that is a thing, of course, but yeah, I think my big question here is
Hermit Sal, I agree with you, but that insecurity is pain. That's why they're diminishing their pain security. I agree.
Right. And let's say this. Diddy definitely blackmailed Cassie with the videos, but I have not heard about him blackmailing Jane with the videos, because what we've actually heard from Jane is that they watched them together. They even had a name for watching these videos, and it was called Movie Night. So what it seems like, and also Diddy didn't put his hands on Jane for about 3.5 years. And I wonder if, because he said he I don't know. It's weird. Like, how was he able to stop when he beat Cassie so viciously? He meets another woman, and then he doesn't end up putting his hands on her until 3.5 years later, a month after he makes a video saying he's going to be a better man. But I digress. My question was here, the jurors will hear the instructions of what, let's say, constitutes sex trafficking, the force, fraud, coercion, right? And I can say that they will connect the dots with the force, fraud, and coercion between Cassie and Jane. But what are the odds of 12 jurors being unanimous on the fact that these women were essentially commercially sex trafficked, right? I mean, I think that's going to be very tough. And I think it's going to be this pivotal moment, I think, in society here, where it's like, hey guys, sex trafficking is not getting picked up at a truck stop, kidnapped by this big scary man and him forcing you to sleep with all these men. I guess it could be flying on a private jet, getting 15 grand deposited in your account for your birthday dinner and your friends and family, so I just feel like this is going to be just a moment where it's like, hey, men out there, you better be careful. And the word coercion, when does that kind of step into like First Amendment stuff? Are religious organizations going to be accused of coercion, right? I mean, don't eat pork. I am just wondering how it's going to work moving forward. And again, this is me just trying to understand both sides of this, because I do feel like it's a complicated case.
Well, there's no doubt it's complicated. And I do think that this is going to have a chilling effect on certain conduct. And I do think those questions and how it's going to apply cases down the road are important. And it's always a case like this. But, and your question of, do you think 12 jurors, as a lawyer, you say if they follow the law, he's guilty. He's guilty because the square pegs fit in the square holes for the elements of the crime. Like that I see it. If they allow for their humanity, which of course they will, and their common sense and everything else to factor into it, and they start thinking about the bigger picture, they may have reservation. And that's where you start and say, look, in no world is it acceptable that a guy beats the shit out of a woman, okay, when she says no, forces her to have sex for 18 hours straight, and tries to pay off people to cover that beating up, okay, by paying Garcia for the video. In no world is this not an ongoing organization, and does it not constitute sex trafficking. The transportation, I think, is a no-brainer. That one is 10 years. You get 10 years apiece on the two of those.
Well, and they added those charges last minute, the government. And I get why, because like you said, that is the easiest charge to convict on. And also, right before the trial started, the defense filed a motion to drop those charges. And, they had said it was, I think they kind of said it was like a racial thing almost. And at the time, I did think that was ridiculous. But after giving it some thought, I was talking to my husband about it, and I was like, how many men, like wealthy men, will fly their whoever they use, maybe outside of their marriage, if they pay or if they don't. How many of these men fly these women out to parties, to Miami for Super Bowl? That is like the biggest, like, I just thought about this. And again, it goes back to the whole, like, all right, we are in this moment in society where, like, you don't think you're committing a federal crime, but you are. And I think what's going on here as well is that we are hearing how horrible Diddy was to these women. I mean, like, no excuse for what Cassie went through, no excuse for beating Jane like that. There's no excuse. But I think what people are having an issue with is, like, was he targeted? Was this a target because they had to get him on something because of Cassie's lawsuit and this video, right? So, but
I think this guy's gotten away with, if you look back on his life, he's gotten away with. So to say he was, for people out there that are saying Diddy was targeted, oftentimes a civil lawsuit is what kickstarts these, okay? Vince McMahon of the WWE, he was under federal investigation after the lawsuit came out, okay? Yes. Now, that didn't yield charges. What's that?
I watched that doc. Yes, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it didn't yield charges, but the FBI cannot ignore a situation that's thrown in their face, okay? Mm-hmm. That video kicked off this inquiry. I don't understand how people like Diddy can go on for decades and decades. I do. He throws money at a problem. He's very powerful.
Yeah.
And this is something that probably should have come to light a long time ago.
Oh, wait, sorry. I just want to address this. Sorry. So we're not biased. Jane smashed Diddy's head in the marble first, and then that's what caused the beatdown. She asked for it, guys. Okay, happy? Cool. Now you can talk. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
So, so he's saying Jane. Yeah. He's saying Jane smashed Diddy at one point.
I was biased because I didn't say that Jane started it by smashing his head. So I'm saying, okay. So yes, they got in a fight, and Jane smashed his head into marble first because he, like, bent over to tie his shoe, and then the fight ensued where he kicked down 4 doors. He, like, off the hinges, and then punched her in the head, beat her, all this stuff. So yeah. So she asked for it.
That information came out. The jury's going to have that information.
Yeah, the jury has that information. Yes, but apparently it's okay to beat on a woman if she starts it first, Jarrett. So yeah.
Well, when you're kicking door, look, think about this. She locked herself in the bedroom, then she locked herself in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what happens, again, nobody's saying Jane or Kathy are Lily White in this.
No,
they're not on trial. They're not accused of very serious sex trafficking charges.
Right.
Now, all of the passion people feel about this, I get it. This is what the defense wants. They basically want, their position is these were consensual adults that voluntarily were part of these relationships. And I just go back to, you cannot watch that tape of Cassie in that hallway and say that was consensual. She willingly went to that hotel room. You can't. And you cannot unring that bell. Will 12 people get it? I don't know. Looking at it the way I've done a lot of jury trials. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's hard to unring a video like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. And it just goes back to, like, I cannot imagine, let's say shoving a man because I'm upset, and then, or whatever, and then having like a 3-hour beat down session. And then, you know what I mean? Like, I would stand no chance against a man. There's, you know what I mean? Like, and somebody had asked, by the way, why isn't he charged with domestic violence? Well, for Cassie, the statute of limitations is up, and the LAPD made a statement after that video came out, like, look, we can't do anything about this. And that was sort of another reason that I kind of thought, well, all right, the feds are figuring something out here, because, they had to do something, I think, at this point, which is my point about, like, when does it become a again, they're targeting him because they believe he's gotten away with so much for so long. So they throw these extra charges at the end to ensure that he gets some kind of jail time, right? So I think, I don't know.
Well, that happens too, though. Once you're getting ready for a case, they may have contemplated charges. And if those charges are within the indictment and the information that's already been put forward, it's not prejudicial to the defendant. You would say, Judge, we've already alleged this conduct. All we're doing is adding this particular crime. So, I mean, it's in state court amending the information to include different charges. So,
yeah.
What is that? What did Rosie? What is that?
Like,
you may not cause.
You don't fight men. It's funny. You're right. There might be some women who throw down for a long time. You're absolutely right. I just feel like it will be tough, I think, and you know, Jane said on the stand, they made it very clear she is a lot smaller than him. And her only fight here was to either run or kind of throw stuff at him. But I like this. Everyone needs to just keep their hands to themselves, period. And I like this too. There is no excuse to beat on a woman. I like that as well.
Well, and Diddy's no slouch. I mean, he's a tough guy. He's not, the guy's fit. He's been around. He's got access to guns. I mean, all I could tell you is,
go ahead.
All I could tell you is these facts, okay? The stuff that has come out every single day are so bad for him. That's the thing. Like, you got to weigh that against this consent and the fact that Cassie or Jane may have loved this lifestyle. That's maybe the balancing that gets done here. But I think at the end of the day, you come down and say, look, Diddy was the worst actor here. Okay. His behavior was criminal. His behavior was violent. His behavior was ongoing. And that's how he ends up. My prediction, he's convicted.
Well, I was thinking about this too. We haven't heard about him putting his hands on a man at all. It really has only been his girlfriends that we've heard in the courtroom. So I also found that to be kind of interesting as well. Like, we're not hearing that he's some, like, I don't know, this big tough guy that is, all we heard about was the instance where he put 3 guns on his lap and went to go chase Suge, or, went to Kid Cudi's house allegedly with the gun, per Capricorn Clark, if one believes her testimony. So yeah. And, just to throw something in there, I think that the defense has done a good job of layering in that doubt where, there was a police report about this night, but there was no mention of kidnapping and there was no mention of a gun. So what will the jury do with that? You know what I mean? And I actually thought Capricorn was one of the better witnesses, I guess. However, it was very clear that she really did have some emotional issues, the way she would kind of talk about the death of her parents on the stand, her son having issues. And I think, and Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, but when a witness starts to kind of do that, where you're like, all right, we're not really here for your personal stuff, does that sort of undermine anything they're saying? I'm just curious.
It goes to whether or not there's someone who's it may affect their credibility. If they're highly emotional, it may suggest they're amenable to pressure from the prosecution or the defense. But the reality is, whatever they're saying has to be relevant. You got to keep them on the page, because you don't want her moved by Capricorn's personal problems. Therefore, we like her and we feel sorry for her. We're going to believe what she's saying. That's a sideshow that shouldn't be gotten into.
Right. And I just want to clarify what I just said was, we have not heard of him putting his hands on any men in the courtroom. I'm not talking about.
But there are civil lawsuits from men that allege he's raped them, correct? I mean, so raped them. So
none of that has come up in the courtroom for this trial. And actually,
but that doesn't mean that's not in the mind of Kat or Jane, or know what he's capable of. That's all I'm saying, that he's a formidable guy. That's my point. Like, he's not somebody to trifle with, and he's got bodyguards 6 to 8 people deep rolling with him all the time. So again, he's a formidable, well-known, powerful guy. He's made his money by writing, recording about this kind of stuff. That's his reputation. I mean, that's, and that, again, live by the sword, die by the sword. If that is how that's the image you project to the world, bad boy entertainment, okay?
Yeah.
He lives in that world, okay? But at the same time, Diddy lived in another world. He lived in a world where he was viewed as this mainstream entertainer and accepted in broad circles. I mean, so look, this guy, he fell from grace so far, and every day is another, he plummets even further.
Well, I feel like deliberations are going to be brutal. I really do, because at this point, I really think that it could go either way. And I've said this, I think there could be this generational divide within the jury, because the age differences are pretty drastic. I mean, there are only 3 jurors under 40. And there's a lot of jurors in their, in their 60s, and I believe maybe one in their 70s. But I just feel like, again, going to what you said, even if, let's say, they do say, okay, well, this makes sense for trafficking, this makes sense for RICO, but they've heard the big picture with all the doubt, with all the text messages of consent, with all of the, you know what I mean? So I feel like it could go either way. And it's
so you got to refocus, okay?
Yeah.
Here's how you refocus. In closing, you play that video and you very simply say this.
Right. Okay.
Quietly, you look at that jury and you say, if that looks like consent to you, then that man should walk out of this courtroom a free man.
Ooh.
If that looks like coercion, violence, pressure, assault, and kidnapping, he's guilty. And he's guilty of running an organization in furtherance of that crime, period. That's it. That's what I would do.
And this is so interesting. This chat, there's like such a divide. There's some people that are so staunchly Diddy is innocent, and there are so many people that are like, he is so guilty. And that's what I'm saying, where it's like this could go either way.
Well, like what Smoke just said, these women wanted the lifestyle and the money.
Okay.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, that's true. But that doesn't mean the case is closed, because it doesn't mean he can do what he did as a result of that. It makes the case tougher. It makes their motivation a little different, okay? There may be more to the story, but it doesn't mean case closed. It means case closer, but not closed.
I know. Wait, and this one, I think he is only one part of a bigger picture in Hollywood. And I also think he's made someone so mad they took him down. This could be a hung jury, Lauren. Yeah, that's why I'm saying I think it could be a hung jury, because everybody is so divided on this. And also, I want to point this out too. In the courtroom every day, everybody wants to go to Diddy's parties, right? Every celebrity wants to go to the white party. They all want to hang out with Diddy. No one in the courtroom. He's got one friend in the courtroom, very good friend of his. Charlucci's in there every day. His sons are in there. He seems like he's got maybe some family members. I don't know exactly who they are, but nope, not. I mean,
it was the same way with Bill. I was at the Cosby trial. It was the same thing. He had his family with him. And Cosby was a little different, but it was actually like, again, that fall from grace. This is someone who always had an entourage, always was just bigger than life in his presence and his attendance at everything. And now all he has left is his family there supporting.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I noticed that though. I'm like, everybody seems to have disappeared on him at this point. And you know what I'll say also is just observations in the courtroom. He is heavily involved in his defense. I mean, his lawyers almost sometimes like look at him. I don't want to say for approval, but they do look at him a lot. And even today, he's trying to get Tenny's attention because another lawyer wants, like, he's involved. He's trying.
Well, he's a producer. He's a captain of industry. The guy is extremely wealthy, extremely successful. He's no dummy. Like, that's the thing. And he's powerful, intelligent. That's the two. Those are his weapons too. Those are the two things he used to manipulate. So it's no surprise to me he's directing his attorneys. I mean, because he knows his case, he knows the witnesses, he knows the facts, and he knows how he wants them to be seen. So there's no surprise to me.
And you can tell, like, it definitely drives him crazy to not be like in charge, I guess. Like you can totally tell, because again, he really wants to be a part of this case. There have been, just issues about them wanting more time with him, and the judge has been pretty fair about that and saying, I'm working on it. However, just know that you have gotten more time than a lot of other people have with their lawyers. So, just kind of throwing that out there. And overall, I just a side note, I think the judge has been very fair when it comes to a lot of these rulings and a lot of what he allows in. If people, because I've heard people say, oh, he hates the defense. Well, he just ruled that the government couldn't recall Dr. Don Hughes after Jane. And think about how powerful that would be. After Jane testifies, Dr. Hughes gets up. I'm not saying I think she's the best witness because of Depp Heard, but she testifies about, why trauma survivors go back, etc. The judge was like, no, I'm not doing that. It'll prejudice the defense if I call back a witness, and because why is she more important than other witnesses? So I think overall, yeah, he's doing a good job. And
well, his background, the judge is young. He's younger than me, which makes him young. And he was Judge Ginsburg's, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's clerk back in 2006. Oh, yeah.
He's a Columbia.
Yeah, bright. He's the first Asian judge, I believe, in the Southern District. But young, he worked at a law firm, great federal clerkship under his belt. I mean, he's went to Columbia. He's no slouch, this judge. And President Biden appointed him, for whatever it's worth.
I did see that. And just quickly, Queen Key, Tenny Garagos had asked yesterday, not today, but I think it was 2 or 3 times when Jane was kind of saying that she didn't really want to do drugs, but she did it anyway. Tenny would say, and how old were you when you did these drugs? And how old were you? And so, yes, she would say, I think I was 35. So just to your point, that was brought up by the defense. And then something else.
And Cassie was 19 when she started her relationship with him.
She was 20 or 22 when they got together. But yes, when they met, she was 19. But I was also going to say something that Diddy's appellate lawyer, Alexandra Shapiro, brought up, because I was thinking about this, about the fraud aspect of some of Jane's testimony. And I guess like some of the fraud, if I'm going to get technical, was that he promised that after a hotel night or freak off, he would take her to this island off the coast of Miami, but he took Young Miami instead, and he didn't take.
Oh, Turks and Caicos.
Well, no, it was in Miami, and it was this like it was a different island, like a special.
Oh, whatever. And I don't know anything about, but I know that on her birthday or something.
Yeah, so like she brought this up, and I was like, okay, I guess that could go to fraud. And I was kind of thinking, like, is that a good case for fraud? But then Shapiro said, I think it was yesterday morning, she was like, also, Your Honor, we're going to be filing a motion here. Promised quality time is not a federal crime. That's what she said. I was like, see, this is what I'm like, oh my goodness, this is getting very interesting. So, yeah.
I just for whatever it's worth, I just say refocus. The defense is doing a good job of bringing all that stuff out there. Just the conversation we're having here with our viewers, it's effective. But if you're in there, and you got as a prosecutor, you got to refocus it, and stand by the basis of your claim, which is violence, coercion, and these sexual acts as a result. That's the key.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm just here trying to understand both sides of the case. That's why I feel like I'm learning a lot. And I'm so anxious for the instructions and for deliberations. I have no idea what to expect. Truly, no idea. Again, especially because of this chat, everybody is so staunchly has these staunchly opposing views that I'm like, man, and they are very sure of them. And it's like, I don't have that. I want to finish the case. I know how I feel so far, that for once, I'm not really sharing my true opinions, because I don't have strong ones right now. I'm taking it all in and listening. I guess my strong opinion is that I feel horrible for what these women went through in turn, like Cassie. I feel horrible for Cassie. I can't get her out of my head. And that is just one thing that I'm like, oh my gosh. And by the way, we didn't bring up the forced labor thing. I don't know, because that's part of RICO as well, is it not? Or
Force, yeah, well, it's an aspect of the charge, yes. So,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I don't know where all that falls in. I think all of it comes to this. The force aspect is compulsion, coercion, all the
Yeah.
power that he
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
So, yeah, forced labor is the labor of the sex act. I don't know. I don't know. But the theory on that particular issue was never really clear to me. But I'm not watching it. I'm not in there.
I thought the forced labor was the assistant speaking on working a bajillion hours a week, not getting overtime. Thanks, Afton. Good to see you. That's what I was thinking, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not 100% on that. So
yeah, that's why I was like, oh, the forced labor, because I thought the chef was going to testify, but we actually don't know yet. The government might exclude some of their witnesses. I think somebody just asked about how long the case will go on for. Yes, so
they said it'll be done by the 4th of July.
Yes, but we did hear that the government's case could finish by next Wednesday or Friday. And the defense said, we're not sure how long our case will necessarily go on for because we need the government to let us know which witnesses they're going to exclude, after the 4 next witnesses testify, and then they can make this decision. But I thought the chef was going to have a pretty powerful testimony, Jordana Atkinson, because we've heard her name mentioned a lot. But I haven't heard anything yet, so I'm not sure about that.
Well, and again, to further muddy the waters here, remember, we have all this doubt so far, and Diddy hasn't even started this case. And
that's very true. We haven't heard the defense's
case. Who knows?
Why? I'm just listening.
Who knows? Like I said, I believe I've seen this play out. I've seen, I'm in my heart, I believe he's guilty. And I believe that the prosecution has met its burden. If I was able to predict what every federal jury was able to do, I'd be sitting on a beach, not in a law office at this point. So I think everybody's concerns are pretty valid.
Yeah. No, totally. And like I said, I hear everybody's opinions. I totally hear all of them. But you made a good point. We actually haven't even heard the defense's case in chief yet. That's crazy. We haven't heard what they're going to
remember. They decide who they call. They decide what they admit at that point. They're in the driver's seat, and and so if the case ends on the 20th, they're talking about going till the 4th of July, or getting the case in by the 4th of July. So you're talking a week's worth at least of, or maybe more, of defense witnesses.
Yeah, and transplant, I totally agree. I feel bad for this jury. They are. I mean, this is so funny. One of the jurors, actually, when they heard that we were ending early yesterday, one of the jurors goes, "Yay!"
It's always moments of levity there.
Can we get a breakdown by the prosecutor? What's been charged and how each we did go over that at the beginning. If you want to go, when this is up, we went through all of the charges at the very top of the stream, and Jarrett goes through each of them in detail and why he believes that they have been met. So, and just for the record, Jarrett believes that all of them have already been met thus far.
And just for it's the counts of racketeering, sexual transportation for sex, and sex trafficking. So those are the charges, and we did discuss them in detail at the beginning. And speaking of jurors, not to throw a curveball here, but Arthur Aidala has some jury issues at the Harvey Weinstein case today, huh? And in the past 2 days.
Yeah, so that, I guess one of the so Harvey was found guilty for for Miriam Haley. They are right now hung on Jessica, or not hung, they don't have a decision on Jessica, and they are not guilty on Kaya Sokolow. And I think what's happening right now is that they want to cut some kind of deal because the judge, I think, will have some appellate issues on his hands. This one juror has said, I am scared for my life. He has to be walked in with court officers because he's getting a lot of shit from the other jurors. And basically, I think they might, I don't know. I think they're going to work towards a plea for Jessica Mann. And hopefully the judge will, or not hopefully, but for the defense, he would grant some leniency on Harvey's sentence or whatever if they take this deal. That's the goal, I think. So
the major appellate issue, though, I think, is a juror has indicated to the court that they were considering things that weren't before them about Harvey. That's the big thing. That's huge issue.
Yeah.
So,
right. No, totally, totally. I think that that's such a weird one because I was sitting through Harvey for 2 weeks before Diddy, and these cases are eerily similar. I actually sat through Miriam Haley, and I do think they could have an appellate issue on hand because she freaked out on the stand and she ran off crying and said, "Don't tell me that effing asshole didn't grape me." And then she ran off. If that's not grounds for appeal because he got convicted on her, I mean, right? I don't know.
Well, I mean, hey, it's her testimony. It's a little dramatic, but as long as the prosecutor didn't tell her to do that.
I would think not, but yeah, it was a whole thing. So who knows? But I love all
Parker just said that some people need to learn the definition of consensual and coercion. Agreed, but coercion will be defined to that jury in accordance with the law. So, but I agree.
Yes, it will. And there was one more I wanted to. At my law firm, it's pretty 50-50 on the opinions of people. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 50-50.
I get it.
Like, what the hell? Yeah, it's crazy. Don't hire or date any woman who, oh my God. Sorry. Now I'm just getting into the weeds here. But anyway, all right. So everybody, if you are new to watching this, subscribe to both Pop Crime TV and Primetime Crime. Jarrett and I do stuff like this all the time when there's not a huge trial going on, but we'll be back again and we'll discuss everything that, you know, has come in.
While you're talking, I'm going to start doing some Kohlberger stuff on my own. I'm writing a book and it's driving me a little crazy. I don't have as much time, but we're going to start doing some Kohlberger stuff too and following Diddy. So at your convenience, you and I will be back.
Yes. No, we definitely will. And I totally agree. Diddy and Harvey are similar, totally similar. But all right, guys, thanks so much for watching. And I will be back tomorrow with my coverage of Diddy at lunchtime. So yeah, thanks everyone. And Sal, Tiff, regulars, we love you. We miss you. We'll be back soon. All right.
Thanks.
Bye.